South Africa's largest food company, Tiger Brands, has expressed concern that the war between Russia and Ukraine is likely to push millions of people around the world into food insecurity, putting additional pressure as well on nutrition programs and potentially erasing many of the gains these programs have made over the past few decades. Joining me to elaborate further on this is Tiger Brands Foundation Operations Manager, Karl Muller. Karl, thank you very much for joining us. We need to actually talk about how this is actually viewed. There's been a lot of talk, Karl, about the food insecurity. Many people are believing that this is engineered so that some people actually profit from it. But of course, this is not what you actually believe in as Tiger Brands.
Yeah, good afternoon, Paulani. Thank you very much for having me on. Just to clarify that I can't speak, of course, for the larger Tiger Brands group. I represent the foundation, which is a public benefit organization that specializes in in-school feeding. We're the largest private in-school breakfast program in the country. We serve about 75,500 learners. Coming to your question, we don't certainly think that there's a gross manipulation happening. There may be some opportunists in the world that are using this terrible situation to make a profit. Our concern specifically is around the impact on cereals and breads. This forms about 32% of South African public's diet. And we know that Ukraine and Russia together are somewhere between 29 and 31% of the world's cereal suppliers, including items like sunflower. So we're very concerned that there'd be inflationary pressure on those items which may negatively impact on in-school feeding.
Karl, the latest report by the United Nations World Food Programme also notes that the main expected effect of the conflict on global food security comes through the impact on global grain and energy markets. And you are saying the war will ultimately affect local food prices and, as a result,
yes,
access to food.
Yes, indeed. The Bureau for Food and Agriculture Policy has already shown that around 30% of our wheat imports come via Ukraine and Russia. So we certainly believe that this is going to have some sort of negative impact, especially as the conflict seems to become one that's much more drawn out. If it had been a short, sharp one that would not have impacted harvest as much, this maybe have ameliorated it. But as it draws out, we expect worse and worse consequences.
Another major concern, of course, globally, is that the war could put additional pressure on nutrition programs, in some cases potentially undoing much of the progress in the area of hunger eradication. And we see a lot of the school feeding schemes, which you are also part of around South Africa. You are saying those programs could actually be in jeopardy.
Yes, absolutely. So while we have the financial muscle and some other organizations that work within the field to try and mitigate against inflationary pressure, we're in the wonderful position where we can also negotiate preferential procurement through Tiger Brands. Many of the smaller programs, those run by churches, those run by schools, those run by good-hearted individuals, which are making a massive difference in the lives of learners, could come to a halt. And one must understand that school feeding is not essentially about the nutrition of the child. It's a social safety net. Having the school meals, we've seen from international research, reduces absenteeism, it reduces dropout rates, it reduces sick days, it increases teacher contact time with children. It provides effectively the children with a safer space to be and a healthier space to be than if they were to be hungry or on the streets.
Karl, government has been very clear in trying to reassure South Africans, rather, that we do have enough food reserves, stock to actually weather the coming months. But do you believe that that is going to be enough, depending on how actually the war, how long it takes? Because this war could take years, and nobody knows where it's going to go. And where does that put food security when it comes to the stocks that we have in South Africa?
But Polani, we certainly feel in the short term there isn't an urgent matter of food security. There is, of course, inflationary pressure on pricing. We've seen this in bread prices. We've seen it in cereal prices. There's other factors that lead to general food inflation, such as the spike in the oil price. But we believe in the short term there is. We need to start planning now, though, for the medium and the longer term. If global supply of cereals like wheat, oats, grain are going to be negatively affected, we need to start planning how do we bump up local supply. And in this, we are, as an organization, working with about 40 schools across the country, looking at creating school food gardens that include things like cereals and pulses and vegetables that we can immediately impact, sustainably, I beg your pardon, sustainably the health and the welfare of the children by having a source of food. And this is something we all need to start taking account of and start planning for, the government nationally. But I would also encourage each of us individually to be looking at these sorts of things. And we know anecdotally from our 95 partner schools that there's been a big uptick in the need for the breakfast in the schools. The consumption has increased as there's more hunger in the communities we work in.
Karl Muller, the Tiger Brands Foundation Operations Manager, talking to us there about their concerns with regards to the war waged by Russia in Ukraine having an impact not only here at home but in poorer households all across the world.